What's good, everybody? Good afternoon, and welcome to fabulous Las Vegas. I am your host, Michael Larson, and you are listening to Larson Live. I want to thank you all for joining me. As always, make sure that you're tuning in through Facebook, liking our channel, YouTube Live, or on YouTube Live. Go to NBS Central and make sure you follow our page on that. And make sure that you are downloading our app where all of our content is. On the Apple Store, on Google Play, you search up NBS Central, and we are there for you. Today was a pretty eventful day watching the Michael Jordan documentary, episodes 5 and 6. There was a lot of great stuff. There was some excellent content there, and it really opened my eyes to the Jordan brand, to Michael Jordan, the brand, and what he experienced, what he went through, and how he dealt with it. What I'd like to know now is what his feelings are after. We heard a little bit about it. And one of the strongest comments that he made that just I can't fathom is he says, if I had the chance to do it all over again, I would never want to be considered a role model. It's like a game that's stacked against me. There's no way I can win. Word for word, that's what he says. And in the big grand scheme of things, Michael Jordan is all about winning. It's like a game that's stacked against me. There's no way I can win. If Michael Jordan can't win, then he doesn't want to do it. If there's no chance for him to win. And in his eyes, being a role model, there's no chance for him to ever be a winner. To dive into that, when you look at it, you cannot be perfect. No human being can be perfect. There's never been a human being that was perfect. And Michael Jordan realizes this, which is why and role models are in everybody's eyes supposed to be perfect. And there's no way that he could have achieved perfection. And that's what people are looking for. It's like a game that's stacked against me. There's no way I can win. If I had the chance to do it all over again, I would never want to be considered a role model. In my eyes, I look up to Michael Jordan and the things that he did. He was a true winner. His mentality it can't be compared to anybody. Nobody can compare the mentality to him either, because of what he's overcome. But let's go to where it all started. He was not the chosen one. Michael Jordan was not the chosen one. He didn't come to the NBA with otherworldly expectations like somebody in this decade. And then there's actually been two in this decade, in our last couple decades, Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. Those two were the chosen ones that were supposed to be Michael Jordan, and nobody could be Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan came in not as the chosen one. He didn't come in supposed to be the number one guy of all time. But he bet on himself, and he let his game do the talking. My game was my biggest endorsement. His dedication to the game led to everything else. The Air Jordan brand, there's a lot that comes with it, and the publicity, the fans, the celebrities that want to talk to you, the perfection and the expectations that are expected of you. The social life, and the social life includes politics, which is something that he talked about as well. One of his quotes was, "Republicans buy Jordans too." And a lot of people, that's a very famous quote, but it was made in jest with his teammates. It was a joke, basically. It's something that was funny. But what I took from that whole exchange about Michael Jordan and politics was that he just didn't really care, and he can't comment on something that he doesn't know about, and he won't. I've always appreciated that of him, and I've always emulated that. I don't talk politics. I don't plan on ever talking politics much. That's not something that interests me, and that is something that didn't interest him. But people hold that against him, that he wasn't Muhammad Ali, that he didn't just talk about politics and use his fame as an African American on that pedestal to talk politics. He one of the main things that they talked about was Harvey Gantt, the Democratic candidate that was aiming to be the North Carolina's first black senator, and he was asked to speak about him, to publicly endorse him, and that's not something that he agreed to do. Was this him worried about his image, or was this just him being Michael Jordan? It's not something that interests him. If he was truly worried about his image, about everything that he did, then why would the gambling thing be so public? He didn't care, but everybody else seemed to care for him. That was a very, very big topic in this show, in this episode, was his gambling. And the New York media, they brought that to a big light when he went to Atlantic City after Game 2, before Game 2, lost Game 2, and they wanted to blame him being tired because he was out gambling with his father, and that really brought his gambling antics into light. The fact that he's gambled with guys such as Slim Bowler, Richard Esquinas, and those things, and the comments and the facts that rose from those, the $57,000 check that he delivered to Slim, the $1.2 million in gambling debts allegedly to Esquinas. I don't have any problem with that, and I don't think anybody should ever have a problem with the fact that Michael Jordan gambled his own money. In our eyes, that's a lot of money. But here's the numbers. $10,000 to him is $10 to a woman that makes $100,000 in a year. If you make six figures, your $10 is Michael Jordan's $10,000. So if you make 100 bets of $10, that's $1,000 that you betted on throughout however many bets that you made, or what the bets were. 100 bets, whether it's on a sports game, whether it's if you could roll a quarter to a wall, get a quarter closer to a wall than somebody else, or golfing. Your 100 bets are $1 million to Michael Jordan. 100 bets of your $10 is $1 million for Michael Jordan, because his $10 is $10,000. So who cares? $1.2 million in gambling bets. That was 120 bets with this Richard guy that he bet with and golfed with very often. 120 bets with this guy. At the most, if they were $10,000 bets each, or they could have been higher stakes. It could have been $100,000, which would be, again, $1,000 to us. Now, sorry about the numbers. Might have gotten a little confusing, but you understand that Michael Jordan's on a different level monetarily as a very large percentage of this world. And so if he wants to be a winner, which he does, that's all he cares about is winning. His gambling, he's gonna put high stakes on it. He's gonna put high stakes on his gambling, and use his money status to pressure other people to put money up and gamble. It's all about the pressure. And Michael Jordan thrived under pressure. He cracked a lot. Everybody has cracked under pressure. Whether that's playing poorly, letting the media get to you, but regardless, Michael Jordan always came out on top. He never cracked under pressure once he was at the top. He against the Pistons early in his years, against the old Larry Bird Celtics and the old Magic Johnson Lakers that he played against, that would have been regular season, but we're talking playoffs. The Pistons, the Celtics, those teams that he couldn't overcome. When he did overcome them, he never dropped back down. When he was on top, he never dropped down. 6-0 in the finals. He cracked many times, but he never crumbled. There are people that have crumbled under pressure. Almost every other player that you could compare Michael Jordan to, or try to compare to Michael Jordan, did crumble under pressure. But Michael Jordan, he cracked, but he never crumbled, and that's why he is the greatest, because under pressure, he never crumbled. That was the whole thing with the gambling. With the gambling, he loves pressure. He loves pressure, and he loves winning, and he loves to play under pressure. That's what gambling does. When you're betting on blackjack, when you're golfing and trying to make a putt to get yourself 3 under par, when your opponent is 2 under par, when you're tied up, and then your opponent says, put $10,000 that you're not going to make that putt. Okay, I'll bet $10 that I'll make this putt. How many times in an 18-hole series can that happen? And you think it was just one 18-hole series? You don't think that they might have golfed twice, golfed another 18 rounds? You can gamble so much money, and yet people made a big deal about it. People made a very big deal about it, and it really shouldn't have. That's something that I want to talk about with Marlon. Marlon Malcolm will be coming on my show around 4:25, 4:30, and we'll talk extensively about Michael Jordan and the pressure of the media. Malcolm Marlon has always been critical of Michael Jordan. He sees it in a different eye. We'll see how he said what he says about how he sees Michael Jordan. But I definitely have some questions to ask him about how he feels about this, about Michael Jordan and his celebrity status. I'll ask him how he feels about the gambling, whether he thinks it's whether he thinks the gambling was a problem, what he thinks Michael Jordan would have been like in this era. We're not talking about basketball skill. We're talking about with social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything, everywhere there's a camera on your phone, and it's different than what it was in 1996, 1995. In the 90s, there were cameras, but not on your phone, not everywhere. So Michael Jordan might have had to deal with things a little bit differently. He says, if I had the chance to do it all over again, I would never want to be considered a role model. It's like a game that's stacked against me. There's no way I can win. I just don't think that's true. I just don't think that I would love to interview Michael Jordan and talk to him about this quote. This would be everything that I would want to know about him. I would love to know what he feels about this. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Listen to these messages from our NBS crew.
What's good to all the full-time and part-time sports fans out there? Mr. Box Office here to remind you to tune into the Nothing But Sports show every Tuesday night at 5:30 Pacific, 7:30 Central, and 8:30 Eastern Time. Watch us live by subscribing to us to NBS Central on YouTube and download the app, available now on the Apple Store and Google Play. Also, you can add us individually on Facebook, and we will also be on Facebook Live every Tuesday at those time frames. See you then.
Hey, this your boy Jay Franchise, part of the NBS Central crew, as well as one of the greatest sports analysts to ever bust the sports waves. I'm here to tell y'all, check out our latest show, NBS Central's Uncensored, where we give you the rawest and realest sports analysis to date. In addition to that, download the app, NBS Central, in the Google Play and Apple iTunes stores. Check it out now. Peace. What's good? What's good? What's good? This is your boy Truex, the sports junkie of the Let's Talk About It show, the Stardom Situm show, and of course, the Nothing But Sports show. And when I'm not on the panel, Smash and J Franchise, Keel, and of course my homie Mr. Box Office Yvonne, I'm tuned into my boy Mike Larson on Larson Live.
We're back. Sorry about that. Had to listen to our messages. Make sure you download the NBS Central app on the Google Play Store, on the Apple Store, as well as going to our YouTube channel and following us at NBS Central. Let's go back to Michael Jordan. Some of the things that we were discussing earlier. The biggest thing with the gambling. Another quote that he said was, everybody has a preconceived idea on what he should do and what he shouldn't do. The way I go about my life is I set examples. And if it inspires you, then great. If it doesn't, then maybe I shouldn't be the person you should be following. A big thing that he was talking about here, and this is amidst the gambling. This is amidst the gambling. The expectations that people have of him and the examples that he sets. The way I go about my life is I set examples, and if it inspires you, then great. If it doesn't, then maybe I shouldn't be the person you should be following. In my eyes, everybody should follow what Michael Jordan did. It's not necessarily the exact actions, but his mentality. This, in my opinion, the greatest mentality that we've ever had. Like, he cracked under pressure. He always cracked under pressure. Everybody cracks under pressure, but he never crumbled. My fame, it was good at the beginning. Anytime they talk about you in a positive way, it's great to hear those comments. Now that you're on a pedestal, it's not just the positive things you hear. You hear some points with some people taking shots at you, and that really changes the whole idea of being out there for people to see you. You want to get behind more closed doors so that people don't know you as much. I'm at that stage in my career, that point in life where I'd rather get behind closed doors than to be out there in the spotlight, to be taking shots from everybody that really don't know you as a person. This is leading up to his first retirement. He says before his first retirement that he says before his first retirement that he would never let the media push him out, let somebody else push him out. The only reason that he would retire or leave basketball is because he doesn't feel that he could contribute to the game anymore. He can't play at the same level that he can anymore. I think that's a wizardry with words, honestly. That's an excellent way with his words. Because in the end, yes, you're letting the media push you out, and you're letting the media get inside your brain where you can't play at the same level as you could before. That's really what it is. And so it's probably a little difficult to admit that, but that's probably what the gist is. We'll talk more about his first retirement. I'm going to bring in Marlon Malcolm, a guy that he lived during these times. He got to see Michael Jordan at the pinnacle of his popularity. Who got to see the crowds and compare it to what we see now. How would he be able to deal with it with the social media that we have now? That's one of my biggest things that I'd like to know. Would he even have a social media? Kawhi Leonard does not have social media. Is that he's a little bit more shy. He doesn't have as big of a brand as Michael Jordan. Would people pressure Michael Jordan into having social media, or would that be something that he could ignore? Would he have the same Air Jordan brand, the shoes, the clothes, the style? Would that still be the thing if he didn't have social media in this era? That's a question that I'll talk to Marlon about, see what he thinks. I like having old heads that have more experience and more wisdom, and something that I'd like to learn from. Marlon has been with the NBS Central crew and family for a while, and we'll be bringing him on next.
What's good? What's good? What's good? This is Truex, the sports junkie of the Nothing But Sports Show, the Stardom Sit-em Show, and let's talk about it. And when I'm not on the panel smashing Keo, Yvonne, and G Franchise, I'm tuned into my boy, Mike Larson, and Larson Live. Hey, this your boy, J Franchise, part of the NBS Central crew, as well as one of the greatest sports analysts to ever bless the sports waves. I'm here to tell y'all, check out our latest show, NBS Central's Uncensored, where we give you the rawest and realest sports analysis to date. In addition to that, download the app, NBS Central, in the Google Play and Apple iTunes stores. Check it out now. Peace.
What's good to all the full-time and part-time sports fans out there? Mr. Box Office here to remind you to tune into the Nothing But Sports Show every Tuesday night at 5:30 Pacific, 7:30 Central, and 8:30 Eastern Time. Watch us live by subscribing to us to NBS Central on YouTube and download the app, available now on the Apple Store and Google Play. Also, you can add us individually on Facebook, and we will also be on Facebook Live every Tuesday at those time frames. See you then.
What's good? This is Truex, the sports junkie, and you're now rocking with Mike Larson on Larson Live. Let's get it.
And we're back. Welcome to fabulous Las Vegas. This is Larson Live. I am your host, Michael Larson. On the screen with me now, I do have Marlon Malcolm of the NBS Central crew. What's going on, Marlon?
What up, Mike? How you doing, bro?
Yo, man, glad to have you on. I know that we've had you've been watching that Michael Jordan documentary as well. That's why I brought you on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard the things that I was already saying, but your thoughts. I'd really like to hear. My biggest question right now is about the social media of this era. When you were young, when you watched Michael Jordan, how popular was he compared to the athletes of now?
So, just to give the audience a clear understanding of how his fame was then, I would say Tom Brady, LeBron James, Tiger Woods, those guys understand what Michael Jordan's level of fame was back then, just without the social media aspect. The social media aspect, has totally changed the way that everybody views, just not just sports, but just, everything in general. And it can really be tough on celebrities and politicians, and whatnot when it comes to, being a public figure and being able to navigate and move day-to-day life, you know, like somebody normal. But his fame was very real. And, you know, for those who were not able to witness it live, you know, a good comparison would be Tom Brady, LeBron James, Tiger Woods, you know, guys like that. That would be a great comparison.
Now, one of my questions, the gambling. Do you think that was a problem?
Gambling is always a sticky subject, you know, when you intertwine that in sports, you know, it can be a very difficult subject to discuss publicly. But, you know, I'd say that his gambling could have gotten a lot more out of hand, i.e. Pete Rose, you know, and, you know, Tim Donaghy, the NBA referee who was caught up in the scandal. Like, it could have gotten worse than what it was. And I've always felt that his first hiatus was due to that. Like, maybe he felt like it was spiraling out of control a little bit. And he said, you know what, let me pull chalks for a little while, let things blow over, you know, give myself a chance to, you know, refresh and come back. And, you know, he was able to come back and do another career.
Absolutely. Right now, but I want to stay on this topic with the social media. Do athletes feel more pressure to be political activists because of social media, or is that just something that's expected of them now and wasn't? And obviously, it wasn't expected of Michael Jordan. Why was it expected of him, and should he have? My question is, should he have been more of a political activist in your eyes than what he was?
Great question. My personal opinion, I think he could have been a little bit more active than he was. If you look back to guys like Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown, you know, those guys were very, very active in the political realm as far as voicing their opinions, as well as, you know, the things that they thought were good and wrong with society. And unfortunately, when you become famous, whether it's an athlete or entertainer or politician, it kind of comes with the territory, and people will look to you to give your opinion on things. And some people will value your opinion, whether right or wrong. It's just something that's expected of you when you're in that realm.
Do you think about his Jordan brand, and that's why he didn't dive into politics, or do you think he's where I'm at, which is politics just didn't interest him? It wasn't something that he wanted to speak on. He never wanted to be a politician, and he just didn't care.
That's very possible. You know, maybe he didn't care. You know, as I use the other guys, you know, Jim Brown and Muhammad Ali, maybe there were some things about politics they didn't really care for either, but they felt that, you know, with some of the times that we were going through with civil rights and stuff like that, like, they had to make themselves heard for their respective communities.
Absolutely. With the role model status, you saw his quote where he said, "If I had the chance to do it all over again, I would never want to be considered a role model. It's like a game that's stacked against me. There's no way I can win." What were your thoughts on that comment? That's a very strong comment.
That's a great question. And I'd say not only people that, you know, are athletes, but anybody doing anything, you know, in a positive realm, you know, you're going to always be looked upon to be a role model to, you know, a younger generation per se. You know, even myself, you know, I have to be a role model to my son. You know, I have to be a role model to, you know, other younger guys and younger people that I know, you know, to, you know, not necessarily, you know, tell them what to do, but you just give them guidance and advice. And, you know, if you can give them anything that can help them along their way in this journey of life, you know, that's what being a role model is all about, you know.
Ever get to see Michael Jordan live or see him in person?
I saw him play against the Hawks once.
Okay.
And it was everything that, you know, you could imagine it was.
When
What I'd like to know from that, did you see him outside of the court? Obviously, you saw him live. You saw him on the court. Were you able to see the obviously you can't see the backstage, but did you see any mob? Did you see him getting mobbed after games or before games?
I saw just the crowds of people trying to get autographs, and, you know, that mob was crazy, and I couldn't get to him. You know, I wanted an autograph, and, you know, yeah, I wanted to get him to autograph my shoes, but of course it was just way too many people, and, you know, he went, you know, back under the stadium, and he was gone.
have you seen anything like that?
Since Michael Jordan, have you seen anybody else gather those types of crowds, and who are those players?
One player for sure that I have seen live is Deion Primetime Sanders. He absolutely garnered the crowd like that. He was a showstopper. You know, this guy was everything what his name, you know, embodied, primetime. He was there for the cameras. He signed autographs. He did the whole nine. He embodied that whole persona.
Okay. You can hear me like this right now, by the way, right?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Okay. Just making sure. Change something up real quick. Deion Sanders, that's actually very surprising. That's somebody I've never really paid attention to. His name is Primetime, though, for a reason, of course, right?
This guy was born for the cameras, for the spotlight. He was born for it all.
Absolutely. And he's in the media now. What did you expect Michael Jordan to do after he was done with basketball for the second or third time? Tell me.
To be honest, I never expected him to go the owner GM route. I never expected that. I thought maybe, you know, he would have kind of been more of a philanthropist like Magic Johnson and, you know, some other guys. But I never really thought him to be much of a GM or team owner type person. But obviously, you know, he's there and he's made a name for himself. You know, although his teams haven't been as successful, you know, he's still there in that position.
Right. Especially with the Jerry Krause, the ownership of the Bulls, it just doesn't make sense that he would be an owner. Maybe that's something that he thought that was the next challenge for him, I guess, to be great at that. That's the only thing that I could see, I guess. That's something I'd like to ask him, of course. Ranking and popularity. You said that Deion Sanders was up there. Kobe, LeBron, those are the two other guys that were the chosen ones. They had to have gotten crowds like that, but they were just not. I mean, was there just a different level in that?
I'm sure, you know, you could poll 10 people and they'd all give you a different response as to, you know, the level of fame that each one of these guys have or have had. And those can be varying degrees, but I think you gave a great depiction that, you know, those three guys are they were pretty much chosen. You know, there's not many people that come around in really any industry that, you know, are that great for that long, You know, so I believe if you rank them, you know, I wouldn't even put a specific order. You know, you can put whoever you want one, whoever you want two, and vice versa. So, you know, I don't think that, you know, anybody is better than the other one. It's just they're all great, and
the
we'll.
The Air Jordan thing just seems to separate Michael from Kobe and LeBron. Like LeBron is LeBron.
Oh, definitely.
Kobe has the Black Mamba, and both of those guys had successful shoe brands. You know, Kobe
Absolutely.
had his, LeBron had successful shoes, but the Jordan thing is just on a different level, and I just never really understood why. Was it just because he was first? Is that the only reason? That's something I'd like to get the bottom to. Or
he was the first to really get the huge deal. Magic and Bird, you know, those guys were on the Converse. You know, they were doing Converse a couple of years earlier. But Mike, he was probably the first to get that big major shoe deal, and I guess you can say, you know, he chartered it all, and he's the one that spearheaded, you know, how athletes get shoe deals now.
And he made good on it. Like he said, his game was the biggest endorsement. He couldn't have done this if he was averaging. If in his rookie season he had troubles and he averaged, you know, 11 points and 3 rebounds, you know, and had an average rookie season, then it wouldn't be the same thing.
Absolutely. Like, you know, the player was the product. The player was the asset that has driven all of this to be what it is today and throughout history since he started.
Yeah. Michael Jordan went through a lot of media pressure. One of the things that he said before, leading in episode 6, I think it was, where he's talking about, you know, we're leading up to his first retirement, and he says he never let the media or anybody else push him out. The only reason he would get pushed out is because he feels he can't play on the same level that he wants to or can anymore. But in my eyes, it's like, okay, but it's still the media that's not allowing you to play at that same level. Am I correct? He's playing word games here.
The media, unfortunately, the media sometimes, I believe they can drive a wedge to push you one way or the other. And, you know, for those guys, I'm sure it's a daily battle. Even to today as a GM owner, he still probably feels a little bit of pressure, you know, as far as his team not having success. And you just got to figure out a way to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, because we've all seen, heard, read, you know, different writers or reporters. They find ways to dig and ask questions in different manners, and sometimes they can stump you up, you know, the way that the questions are asked. And if you're not prepared to give, you know, a great answer, you know, of course, we're in a society now where everything gets nitpicked.
You know what? Something that really upset me when there was 2 things that were said that really upset me. There were 2 questions or 2 things about the media. Sean Smith says, I think Phil will use this. They're talking about the Jordan rules. I think Phil will use this book to an extent to say, here, this is out there. They're trying to divide us apart. I think in a lot of ways, it'll bring this team together. That's what he said. And then also, a reporter asked, I think it was Paxson. He asked him, do you feel like, and this is regarding the Atlantic City debacle, do you feel like all that negative publicity about Michael going down to Atlantic City really pulled you guys together this week? And it's like, the media creates these things to put their name into it so that they can feel like, oh, I was part of this, and I helped them come together and spirit together into success. Do you see that as well?
That's the way to look at it. And, you know, I've seen some situations like that, you know, through sports that are similar. And as a team, you know, you have to be able to overcome that. You have to be able to sit down and say, hey, we're not going to let this divide us and be a distraction.
Do you feel that maybe like the players actually don't give a crap at all? Like they see that stuff and like they really don't care. No, it's not something that spirits them together at all because they just don't care. Do you see it that way as well?
I've always believed that if something happens or is said about you, if it doesn't really bother you, you don't worry about it. But if there's something that, somebody could get some weight to and actually find some validity to, then that could really become an issue. Like I really see that throughout my life, If something has some validity to it, it could really be used against you. And if you're not prepared to talk about it, the fire could burn on and on and on.
Yeah, you just said something that you've seen in your life. Is there something that popped in your head right there where you had to, where somebody said something that really helped you along, or tried to create an agenda about you, something like that helped you get to where you are now?
Definitely. Just professionally, I've had challenges before where, you have some things that may be said about you and, there's no validity behind it. So you're like, hey, I know who I am as a person, I know who I am professionally. So I'm not going to really let that distract me. I'm going to keep pressing forward, to be successful.
That's something and in that era, when the Jordan rules came out, did it seem that the Bulls were able to just shrug it off and ignore it, or was there offense taken? Was Michael Jordan, and if there was offense taken, that tells me that there has to be some truth to it, correct?
I'll say this: when those Jordan rules first came out, the Bulls absolutely did not do a great job dealing with it.
Okay.
The Pistons, and I'm sure for those who saw the games live as well as those who have seen the games on replay, they really were in the Bulls' heads, and they really beat them up and intimidated them and took advantage.
I'm talking about the book here, though, that Sean Smith wrote about that. Like when there were the comments about what Jordan was saying to people in practice, the book where Sean Smith was giving light to things that were said about Michael Jordan. Did it seem like did you watch media interviews where they were asking Jordan about that questions, and did it seem to bug him?
I can remember a few press conferences where he looked a little bit fed up at hearing the question. So I would imagine that it probably bothered him to some degree. He would definitely try to avoid the question, at times where, hey, if we're not talking about the game itself, then I don't want to, discuss it anymore.
Yeah. And that brings us back to the Atlantic City and the gambling thing, where that seemed to really bug him. Actually, he said things. He went through a 2-week hiatus where he wouldn't talk to the media, and that tells me that really bugged him as well. He said, the gambling wasn't a problem. He said, every addict says this. Every addict says this. If I could stop, I would, or I could. And everybody says that.
Yep.
I've said that about several things as well. Every addict has said that. And so gambling obviously was a problem for him. And he says, it never put my family out their homes or hungry. My wife would have left me or that kind of stuff. And he goes on that 2-week hiatus, and then he had that interview with Ahmad
Rashad. That's like his best friend.
Yeah, right. So how did you feel? Like, how do you feel about that interview? What were your thoughts on that interview? It's only a 6-minute interview or something that they aired in the middle of the game. And this was was this a big thing? He went 2 weeks without talking to the media, and then And then he had this interview. Was that a big thing?
It was a big thing, and in fact, you can kind of compare it to, you know, current day when LeBron James goes 0-30 right before the playoffs start. You know, LeBron goes, you know, social media is silent for, you know, 2 weeks to a month before the playoffs, and you know, when nobody's when you're not talking, nobody really knows what you're thinking. So, you know, they'll start to assume that you may be thinking this, or, you know, stories that may not be true may start to pop up. But one thing about that Vegas, I mean the Atlantic City trip, you know, a lot of people may or may not remember, but the Bulls lost that game directly after that trip, or after that Atlantic City trip, I should say. They lost that game, so that you lose the game right after going to the casino, people are gonna, of course, question, you know, hey, were you focused? You know,
he shot poorly. He looked tired.
Yep.
So that's why, and two and two together makes four. That's how people looked at it. Why did he do that interview with sunglasses though? I don't. You have like any? I watched that and I just have no idea. Like literally the only thing that I could think is that, oh, he was high when he did it. That's the only thing that comes in my mind, because I just have no other idea why you would do that with sunglasses. I just don't know.
I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you had to talk to someone after you may have had a night out or something, and, you know, the eyes tell a whole lot about you. So you wear the glasses to hide your eyes so people can't read your eyes. You know, if they can read your eyes, you know, they may not know exactly what you're thinking, but, you know, some people are good at reading body language and stuff like that. So he could have really given off something that he didn't want people to actually know about by doing that. So, you know, I understand why he wore it, but
that makes the interview so ingenuine. It makes it ingenuine right there, right?
Yes, it makes it look like if you were accused of something that you're guilty.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Like, he's talking and he's supposed to not, you know, he's supposed to be, you know, bringing things to a light, and he's wearing sunglasses, so there's no validity to what he's saying at all. That's what it seemed like, and it's a little upsetting. I don't understand how he, you know, that's something that I wish they would dive into. I really enjoyed this documentary, but I feel like there's a lot missing in here. We're not getting everything, and do you see the same thing? Like, we're not getting everything out of Michael Jordan, and it's too difficult to get everything.
I agree, and I think the reason why some things may be missing is because he does get the finals. He got the final edit cut. You know, hey, take this out, leave that in. You know, when you have that final say, you can pretty much dictate what the world is going to see.
Yeah, man. I don't think. Have you ever listened to Howard Stern? You ever listen to Howard? He has great interviews.
I haven't listened to him in quite a while.
Okay. The Tom Brady interview, you didn't listen to that at all?
I heard bits and pieces of it.
If you have a chance, that whole 2 hours is just, you know, really good stuff. And that's why, as somebody that this Michael Jordan, I don't know if he's ever had an interview that extensive or that open. And I never looked up if he ever got interviewed by Howard Stern, but I think there would be a lot more if he had been.
I think are you referring to a couple of segments in that interview where Howard Stern was kind of trying to get Tom to talk about, you know, an in-depth look at his relationship with Bill Belichick?
There was that. There was, his life before football, or like before Michigan, the things that he had to go through. You know, he talked about. You just saw Tom Brady as a regular guy, but also, yes, you saw in-depth perceptions. You know, he asked Tom Brady, have you ever had frictions with teammates? Has there been teammates that were jealous of you? How did you deal with teammates that weren't living up to their end of the bargain?
He kept it PC.
Right. Right, right. So like you could ask those same things about Michael Jordan too. You know, he dealt with things in a different way. Tom Brady, him and Bill Belichick, you know, they're on the same page, so Bill Belichick would deal with that. But Michael Jordan was a little bit more intense. So those are things, you know, you'd like to see more of. You'd like to see, you know, they just briefly went through the Jordan Rules book, and you never really all they said was Horace Grant said this stuff, and it's not true. That's basically what we got from the documentary. And it's all like, really? You think you that's all it was? That's all it was? You know, none of that was true. So that's a little upsetting in my mind. That's what I got from that. I guess the final thing that I'm getting to, with the social media, would Michael Jordan have been more like, would he be more concerned with his image in the social media era? Would he just, do you think he would not have social media like Kawhi Leonard, or would he have or would he be more like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and have social media? And also, in a part of that question, would he have a bigger brand with or without social media? Would the Jordan brand, the shoes, sell as much with or without social media?
Well, obviously, as far as the brand, I think it would absolutely be as big, because social media just gives you that further reach that, you know, you may not be able to get any other way. As far as his persona with social media, I think he probably would have had more of a Kawhi Leonard type social media background, you know.
Right.
I think I perceive Mike being a little bit guarded at times, and you know, people who are guarded like that, they don't usually give you very many inside looks to, you know, life off the court, you know, life away from work.
LeBron does a lot of exclusive interviews and stuff like that, and Michael Jordan, he didn't do that as much. He didn't go on TV as much as other guys. He
didn't as much. I do remember the interview he had with Oprah Winfrey. He did a exclusive with her, you know, back in the I believe it was in the 90s. But, you know, other than Ahmad Rashad, you know, he didn't do a whole lot of exclusive interviews, you know, like guys do now. You know, LeBron and Tiger Woods and other guys, you know, they'll give you that 60-minute sit down and just, hey, you know, how's things going? How do you feel about the career, the season, whatever, you know. I do believe that I think he may not have been on social media as much, but I think he would have talked a lot more during this time.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, Marlon, thank you for coming on, brother. I appreciate it. You're an old head. You got to see Michael Jordan live. You got to see the people, how they felt about him. I only got to see my era, so I appreciate you blessing us with that knowledge, brother.
Thank you, bro.
No problem. Talk to you later. The Michael Jordan documentary is going to continue. I'll have more thoughts on that. Just to finalize on these things. One thing I really wanted to hammer down. I didn't get to too much. But the social media thing. The comments that were made. Again, let me go over those real quick. The comments by Sean Smith.
What he said was that I think Phil will use the book. You know, he tried, basically Sean Smith was saying, my book, The Jordan Rules, is going to be it's going to be a factor in them winning a championship. And I don't like that. I just don't. I don't like that the media wants to put themselves in the life of Michael Jordan and the Bulls. The same thing with the Atlantic City, the New York media talking about Michael Jordan's gambling. And they said, do you feel, one of the questions, do you feel like all the negative publicity pulled you guys together this week to get past the Knicks? And it just doesn't make sense to me. It does make sense to me, but I don't appreciate that idea of the media as well, that they are essentially creating problems and the athletes have to get through it. So not only do they have to play the game, work out, they have to, work out every day, get better every day. They also have to deal with what the media is making your image like. We could dive into that a lot more, and I'm sure that we will. Appreciate you coming on. Make sure you download the NBS Central app on your Apple Store, Google Play. Follow our channel on YouTube, NBS Central. This show will only get better. I try to give you guys the best, and I need to work harder to be the best as well. Just trying to take that Michael Jordan approach. There's plenty of things that could be better about this show. Shoot, I mean, I had the camera angles perfect, but now I got stuff in the background. This damn pole is in the way. The top layer wasn't supposed to be like that. Things will get better. I'm taking the Michael Jordan approach, and nothing will stop me from doing better, and I can't let other things stop me from being better. Michael Jordan said that if he could do it all over again, he wouldn't want to be a role model. It's like a game that's stacked against me. There's no way I can win. And in my mind, after thinking, you can win that battle, and I think Michael Jordan did win that battle. It doesn't matter that he wasn't perfect. He was still the greatest role model in the history of sports.